Hello everyone. This week I would like to talk about something that matters just as much as how AI works, and that's how we use it responsibly when it comes to student data. Because here's the reality, AI tools are incredibly powerful. They can save time, help give us feedback, support planning, all of those things. But they're also incredibly easy to use in ways we haven't fully thought out yet. And truly, I am working through this myself. I don't have the perfect answers. I'm figuring it out as I go, just like many of you. So let's do this together. So let's start with a simple question. What actually counts as student data? Most of us immediately think about things like grades, names, student IDs, and yes, those are absolutely, they count. But it's broader than that. Student data also includes writing samples, projects, reflections, emails, even behavior notes. And that's the part that is easy to miss. Even when we remove a name, sometimes the context itself can still identify a student. So a good rule of thumb is this. If you wouldn't feel comfortable putting it in a public email, it probably deserves a second thought before putting it into an AI tool. Now, that's not about saying don't use AI. That's not realistic, and honestly, it's not helpful. But we do need to understand where risk can show up. Some common situations look like this: copying and pasting a full student essay into an AI tool, uploading assignments or documents into platforms with unclear data policies, using tools that may store or learn from what we put in them. And that's the important thing to remember is this. Most AI tools were not designed specifically for K-12 education, which means that they may not be built with student data privacy as a priority. That doesn't make them bad. It means that we have to be more thoughtful. So, what do we do with that? Here's a few practical guardrails. Removing identifiable information wherever possible, using excerpts or summaries instead of full documents, avoid anything sensitive altogether, especially behavior, discipline, or personal situations. And when you're unsure, just pause. That moment of pause is actually one of the most important professional decisions we make. Your professional judgment matters more than any AI tool ever will. Now, there is another layer to this conversation that's worth mentioning. Not all AI tools handle data the same way. There are platforms designed specifically for K-12 education that have much stronger emphasis on student data privacy. And there are also versions of more common AI tools, especially paid or enterprise versions, that include additional protections, like not using your data for training. Now, I'm not going to name specific tools here because access varies from district to district, and some tools have a personal cost associated if not covered by a district plan. But I do think it's fair to say this: some platforms are built with education and privacy in mind. Others are more general purpose tools. That doesn't make one good and the other one bad, but it does mean that they carry different levels of risk. So, part of our responsibility as educators is simply being aware of that, the risk. If you're using a tool regularly, it's worth taking a few minutes to look at what happens to the data that you enter. Where is it stored? Is it stored? Whether it's used to improve their system, and whether your district has guidance on it. And in some cases, you may find that certain tools or certain versions of tools give you more flexibility to use AI while better protecting our students and our student information. But you need to know, and you need to be aware that your student data is important, and you need to know how that data is being used with the tools. Again, this isn't about requiring anyone to go out and adopt something new. It's just about being informed, because when we understand the differences, we can make better decisions. Now let's look at another AI option. I do want to share something that not everyone is familiar with, but it's worth knowing about. There are ways to use AI that keeps everything on your own device. These are called local AI models, and the idea is simple. Instead of sending data out to the internet, the AI runs directly on your computer. That means that student work stays local. Nothing is uploaded, you have full control over the data. This can be really useful for things like grammar feedback, editing support, or drafting comments. But I also want to be very honest with you here. This is something that you can't just do on any computer. To run a useful local AI model, the computer has to be powerful enough. For example, a modern gaming computer with a decent graphics card can usually run smaller models that can actually be very helpful. But the typical computer issued to teachers by a school system is usually not going to run a local model well enough to make it truly useful. That's just the reality right now. Now, there are some exceptions. Newer Apple computers, especially those with higher amounts of RAM, are actually very good at running local language models. For example, I can run a solid, useful model on my MacBook Air with 24 gigabytes of RAM, and they can handle a lot of practical tasks while keeping everything private. But even then, this is still developing. And enough power is always a moving target as these models evolve and change. So I want to frame this the right way. This is not an expectation. It's just an option for those who are interested and have the right setup. And over time, this will likely become more accessible. At the end of the day, this really comes down to something bigger than tools. It comes down to trust. Students trust us with their work. Families trust us with their information. And whether we realize it or not, we are modeling what a responsible technology use looks like. So this isn't just about efficiency, it's about integrity. Our job is not just to use AI, it's to show what responsible use actually looks like in practice. If you're ever unsure, there are 3 quick questions you can ask yourself. Would I be comfortable explaining this to a parent? Would I be okay if this data was stored externally, if the data was out in the cloud? Am I protecting the student as much as I'm helping myself? If the answer feels off, it's worth reconsidering. So here's what I'd like to leave you with. We don't have all this figured out right now, but we do have the responsibility to be thoughtful about the choices we make. Every time we use a tool, every time we handle student work, every time we try something new, we're making decisions that reflect our values as educators. And I think this is one of those moments where how we move forward matters just as much as where we're going. Thoughtfully, professionally, and always with our students at the center. Thank you for taking a few minutes to think through this with me. I'll see you next week.